again, I'm saying this from a lot of experience of doing a lot of experiments on myself, and there's no reset button. So if you change something in your body, everything has to change to match that. Now, here's the thing about breathing. Breathing is the primary way we regulate our pH. I want to say that again because this is so crucial for people to understand. You know, we think like we hear in the nutrition world, like, oh, I need to eat more alkaline food, or I should drink alkaline water, or I shouldn't eat that, it's very acidic. Your body regulates pH through your breathing. That's how this works.
So that's
not through your food.
That's the number one way.
That is the critical, crucial, most important way. And I'm going to explain that in a way that's so obvious in just a second. But I want to point out that, for instance, we often hear that meat is very acidic. Mm-hmm. But then if we really look at it, we see that there were people like the Inuit who ate, let's say 95% of their calories from meat and blubber, and they weren't over acidic. They were very balanced. And we see that people can go the other extreme and eat all alkaline. How does this work? Why can we have all this range? Well, because our pH is actually regulated through breathing. So we've been talking about carbon dioxide. That is the exhaust that comes out of the fire that our cells are burning. Mm-hmm. Carbon dioxide, when it's dissolved in a fluid, we call it carbonic acid. It's very acidic. When you hold your breath, and you start to feel that you need to breathe. For instance, if you held your breath right now, and let's say 30 seconds in, you start to get that urge to breathe. And a minute in, you're getting that, like, you're starting to shake almost, like you just got to take a breath.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Right? What is that? Because we said before, your body can go 4 to 6 minutes without oxygen before there's any damage. So why after 30 seconds do you need to breathe?
Yeah.
It's not because you need oxygen. You have sufficient oxygen reserves for that. It's because the carbon dioxide level has gotten too high and your body's rapidly becoming acidic. And you'll go into an acidosis, and that'll cause coma. So you have to exhale, not inhale. That urge is to exhale and blow off carbon dioxide.
Wow. So that's a really amazing way to, like you said, alkalinize your body, your blood.
Now, here's the thing. What happens if you hyperventilate? So that's where you'll see that swimmers, deep sea divers, underwater divers will sometimes hyperventilate before they go into a dive. That's because if they can blow off lots of carbon dioxide, it takes longer to get acidic and they can stay underwater longer. Does that make sense?
Okay, yeah. I have seen people do that.
It's not necessarily safe, because sometimes they pass out as a result underwater. So it's not the safest thing, but you can blow off carbon dioxide. If you try this, hyperventilating, blowing off carbon dioxide, you're blowing off acid. That turns your blood very alkaline. Now you can hold your breath, and it takes longer for the cells to fill you up with carbon dioxide again and get acidic. Now, if you hyperventilate too long, you'll notice you get lightheaded because you're becoming too alkaline. And if you keep going with that, if you keep hyperventilating, you'll pass out because you're too alkaline.
Yeah, that is so fascinating. Yeah.
We have this story, this myth going through the health world that's been going on for a couple decades here now, that, we're supposed to be alkaline. Mm-hmm. Your blood is not supposed to vary its pH very much. I think the blood is 7.135 to 7.145. I'm pretty sure that's the narrow range of pH for your blood. If it changes very much, you die. So you have to maintain this pH. We don't want to change it too much. So if we either hold our breath, we become too acidic and we pass out, or if we blow out breath too much, we get too alkaline and we pass out. So my point is, if we change the way we breathe too much through force, we actually throw the balance of homeostasis off in our body. So we don't want to get into this thing of, I'm going to forcibly breathe more deeply. It's better to get into a situation where we relax and let our body breathe itself how it wants to.
That's
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
We got to take a little break here. Perfect opportunity for a break, but it reminds me of the breath of fire I think the yogis do, where they do this really, really fast breathing. So we're with Daniel Vitalis, or Thrival.com and DanielVitalis.com, and we'll be right back after this break. It was really cool. A while back, we had Deborah Lynn Dad on our show, and that was episode number 45. She's kind of like the queen of detoxification and getting toxins and chemicals and poisons and drugs out of your body and out of your home. She has a really, really great website. And again, that was extremehealthradio.com/45, her interview that we had. And she turned us on to a really cool product. It's a natural zeolite, which is pretty amazing, actually. And if you're interested in that kind of thing, you can check it out at extremehealthradio.com/zeolite. That's ZEOLITE. That will redirect you to this really cool product that she turned us on to. And I talked with her at length about it. And I've been doing a lot of research about it. And zeolites are adsorptive, so they're positively charged and they bind to anything that's negatively charged, which is like toxins and poisons and chemicals and all these things that we're exposed to. And what they do is they just pull them out of your bloodstream. The size of the zeolite molecule is really important too. So the smaller the size, the more powerful and the more toxins it's going to grab onto and flush out of your body. And this one I think is 0.03 microns, which is really, really small. I think it's the smallest in the industry from what I've learned and from what I've researched. So it's really, really a cool product. And if you're living in the modern world and want to get these heavy metals and toxins and poisons out of your bloodstream, check it out, extremehealthradio.com/zeolite. And it's about, I think, $24 per month for a bottle. And it's really a great way to get rid of these toxins and poisons out of your bloodstream and capillaries and out of the cells and all that kind of stuff. And we really, really liked the product and spoke with the company and trust Deborah. She's done a lot of great work. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, check it out, extremehealthradio.com/zeolite, or you can read about it more on our store as well. And thanks for listening, and let's get back to the show.
All three shows, all the time, on Extreme Health Radio. Opening minds and transforming lives worldwide. Join our community today. Sign up to our email list and instantly get our free gift to you, along with loads of inspirational content and cutting-edge tips to help change your life at extremehealthradio.com/subscribe.
We're having a great time here with Daniel Vitalis from danielvitalis.com as well as sirthrival.com. And if you have any questions about this show or what he's talking about, you can just go to extremehealthradio.com/148 and you can make your comments at the bottom of that page. And don't forget to check out that zeolite too. I know Daniel's talked a lot about that in previous videos that he's done, but zeolite's a really great way to detoxify heavy metals and things like that. And we love ours. We take it every single day. And it's a great product. And as the lady said, don't forget to sign up to our newsletter list too. We'd love to have you aboard there. We give you a great free ebook, Lessons from the Miracle Doctor. So check that out. And so Daniel, before the break, we were talking about how the oxidative process happens and the acid alkaline thing happens when you're breathing. And Kate was saying during the break about breathing into bags, right? When you hyperventilate.
When you hyperventilate. It's so funny. As a kid, you always think, you hear all these things, about, oh, you breathe into a bag and you watch people do it. Or you might even experience yourself. But we never ask why. It's like the science behind this stuff.
Yeah.
As you get older, it's just fascinating to me, and you actually start to think with your brain, and it all kind of puts the puzzle pieces together, doesn't it?
When I think about anatomy and physiology, I'm so humbled, and there's I personally see the hand of intelligent design there, and I just don't know how people buy into a story of that, that you're the product of a random explosion and chance event. Mm-hmm. The complexity of the systems that make up our body is so divine. I just personally just can't imagine what it's like to live in a world where I think that I'm a random accident. Mm-hmm. I love this idea there's a scripture that says that you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Yes. I really like that idea. So yeah, we've been talking about all of this. Yeah, and Kate, just to validate what you're saying, that currently we're taught not to let people breathe into bags anymore, but it does. The effect was that you were causing them to re-inhale their own carbon dioxide, and so you were increasing the carbon dioxide level. Okay, so when does this become practical? So we've talked about all this stuff. What do we do? And I think the listener's probably ready for some health tips now, and how we can start to improve the air around us. We've talked about how crucial this breathing process is. What is it that we can do in our homes, especially in our person, we've talked about on some of the previous calls, your home is your habitat. We live in a human zoo. We're domesticated humans, and it's sort of something between a factory farm and a zoo for people. And your home is your habitat. That is literally your zoo cage. So you get to set that habitat up how you want to. You can make it a kind of paradise for yourself, or you can make it a very destructive place for yourself. And that's really your choice. And we often forget that the space inside our home is not empty space, but that it's filled with a gas or a group of gases that we talked about before. It's full of that nitrogen, that oxygen, that carbon dioxide. And it's our duty to keep that air really clean that's in our house. So I'm going to give you guys a few strategies for how you can do that and produce really good quality air inside your home. Okay. What are the things that accumulate in our air? Let's talk about that first so we know what we need to take care of. One of the issues in the air in our homes, and by the way, the air in your home is more polluted than the air outside. I don't care where you live. So it doesn't matter if you're in Hong Kong, LA, San Juan, anywhere not known for the best air ever. Even though the air outside is polluted and smoggy, the air inside your house is more polluted. So we need to purge our air of pollutants. One of the reasons the air inside of our homes are more polluted than the air outside is because the things inside of our home are invisibly outgassing. Outgassing gases from their manufacturing. So
like plastics and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah. And things that are more subtle, like for instance, the glue that holds things together. So, as we have this call, I have a beautiful maple hardwood floor here. But if I were to peel that floor back, I would probably see that there was an adhesive used to hold that floor down. And I bet the subflooring material is probably plywood. And the plywood, all those plies are held together again with adhesives, right? Mm-hmm. So those materials outgas. So even if we were to, unless we literally built our house from only things in our forest, there's going to be materials in our house that outgas. Typically, what we're talking about here are volatile organic compounds, or what we often abbreviate as VOCs. And these volatile organic compounds, probably the best known of which is formaldehyde. These things accumulate in our home environment. And because our houses are so well sealed up and insulated now to conserve energy, that means that we insulate and hold inside these gases. So we need some way to get them out. First and foremost, we've got to open windows and doors. Okay. We've got to. So the more we open ourselves up to the outside environment and allow air exchange in our house, ideally what we want is a cross breeze so that we have air coming in one side of the house and going out the other side. So we're in one way that I'll sometimes do that if I'm feeling the air inside the house is a little stagnant is I'll open up on one side of the house, open up on the opposite side of the house, and I'll put a fan that blows air out one side and sucks air in the other side, if that makes sense. Yeah. So that I'm exchanging the air so that you are cleaning the air in and out. But you want to definitely allow for gases to escape and fresh air to come inside, which we'll get to in a minute. The next best way to deal with this, and this seems so obvious, but there's some really great science behind it as well, and that's houseplants. Mm-hmm. Houseplants are a really effective way of sequestering VOCs out of your air, neutralizing them, and locking them into the soil that the plant is in. This research that I'm referencing comes from NASA. Mm-hmm. And what NASA was looking at was how do we send human beings up in these sealed containers full of all of these plastics, right? Mm-hmm. Space shuttle environments that are completely outgassing. How do we keep people healthy up there? And what they looked at was, well, could we use plants? And they took a selection of common house plants and tested their ability to absorb things like formaldehyde from the air. And they found that these things were incredibly effective. And there's a really great study, which you can find free online about this. It's all about the different plants that they tested and how effective they were at removing VOCs. Uh-huh. So that works in your home as well. So gases are something you can't get out with an air filter. If you brought a really good air filter into your house, the gases just pass right through it. So an air filter does not take out VOCs like formaldehyde, but plants will sequester those gases. And opening your house up and allowing them to ventilate. And then, of course, first and foremost, is being conscientious about what we bring into our homes. However, I think if I said never bring a toxic thing into your house, I'd be a hypocrite, because I know that I do. We all do. It's very difficult not to, right? If you have, I don't know anybody who's not bringing things into their homes. I mean, the computer that we're using right now is outgassing. The phones that we're using, they're outgassing. The printer paper that we bring home is outgassing. So, all these things add up, and that they accumulate, and then we, if we're not careful, will bioaccumulate those toxins in our bodies. So we need to get that out.
So would you recommend an air purifier just as a backup kind of thing?
Well, we're going to get to what the value of an air purifier is, and I do recommend that. But I just want to be clear, what an air purifier is going to do is something different. Okay? So let's talk about a filter now. A filter is slightly different than a purifier. So a filter that we bring into our house, and the kind of filter we want to look at is called a HEPA filter. And if anybody's ever wondered what HEPA stands for, it stands for High Efficiency Particulate Air Filter. Now, particulate because it takes particles. Now, particles are like basically little chunks of things, like dust. Now, dust is not a gas, right? Dust is a little particle that's thrown up and suspended in the air because of its electrical charge. And on the break, you were talking about zeolites, and you were talking about how they were adsorptive. And you were talking about how, and basically the way that works, as you know, is that the zeolite is negatively charged, essentially, and the toxin is positively charged. Well, similarly, a lot of the things in our air are positively charged, and that keeps them floating around like dust. Now, the dust can be sucked up with a HEPA filter, and what the HEPA filter will do is the air gets pulled into the machine, the dust and all the other particles, like from cooking, let's say, the soot, from smoke, things like that. Those part from candles. Say we're burning beeswax, healthy, beautiful beeswax candles, but some smoke is emitted. That all gets pulled up and sucked up into the filter and locked inside the filter, so that it's not floating around. I often point out to people, I think we've all had the experience of seeing a shaft of sunlight come in through a window at an angle and lighting up all this dust in the air. You guys have seen that, right?
Yeah.
Now, remember, we said your lungs are not hollow. They're more like that couch foam. What happens then if we're sucking all that dust? Remember, that shaft of light shows us that the whole room is filled with dust, not just that shaft of light, the whole room. If we're breathing that stuff's getting stuck in our lungs. The only way to get that stuff out of our lungs is to produce mucus, that the mucus can then carry that up and we can cough that out. So if the less of that we're breathing, the less mucus we have to produce in our lungs, the less stuff we have to cough up and choke out, and the less stuff that darkens and sticks to our lungs. Okay. So a HEPA filter means it filters the air so your lungs don't have to be the filter. If that makes sense. Okay. Now, a HEPA filter, the best thing what I'd recommend is you get yourself a quality HEPA filter, get yourself a few extra filter cartridges, and then those cartridges, by the way, last me years sometimes because I use it very infrequently. I don't run the HEPA filter all the time, and I move it around the house. So you don't need one in every room or something like that. Okay. You can just move it around the house, and you can run them a couple hours a week. They're very inexpensive to run, and what you're doing is you're pulling all that stuff like that dust out of the air. The reason we have dust is because we're shedding skin cells, and that's what dust is. Dust is skin. So when you go to grandma's house and the shaft of light comes in and you see all that dust, that's all the dead skin that's accumulated in her house over the course of years and years and years. Wow. That's kind of gross. Yeah, we don't want to breathe that.
No. Do you use an air filter when you sleep?
It doesn't matter to me if it's on when I sleep or when I prefer to shut things down when I sleep. Okay. And it's not about when I have it on. It's just making sure that I have it on enough that dust isn't accumulating in the house. I see. That makes sense. Mm-hmm. So the filter is really good for removing particles. The plants are really good for removing gases. Now, the next thing, the purifier, that's going to be something that produces ions, negatively charged ions. Now, again, we said that this is just like consuming clay or zeolites in our bodies. We're doing it to our air. So when you see these ion generators, and a lot of people will remember that there was the ionic breeze, I think it was called. It's as seen on TV. They had a lot of commercials. They sold this tower that produced ions. And then after that, lots of machines became popular. And now you can buy them right at a local like hardware store, or a Walmart even will carry them, any department store. They generate negatively charged ions. Often some of that is going to be ozone. And they put that out into your air, and there's a smell from it that's very fresh smelling. I love it. I have a little neck-sized one that I wear as well on airplanes and things like that. It generates something that smells like there's just been a thunderstorm. Right after a thunderstorm, there's this electrical smell in the air. That's because the rain brings down ozone to the surface, and ozone is negatively charged. And when ozone gets knocked down to the surface of the Earth, the ozone basically burns, oxidizes all kinds of toxic stuff. And that's one of the way the Earth cleans itself. Well, we can replicate that in our house. We turn on the ion generator. It sends out negatively charged ions. The negatively charged ions adsorb to things like dust, and then the dust falls out of the sky and lands on the floor so it can be swept or vacuumed up. So the ion generator also adds electrons, free electrons, back to the air. Outside, there's a lot of electrons in the air. That's why we call the air fresh. The air inside gets stale because we breathe up and use all the electrons, and the air becomes stale or stagnant, or basically it's already been breathed.
Okay.
So what happens when we use an ion generator is we start to generate clean, fresh air in our house, and that's the kind of air that we find in places where there's a lot of electricity. Again, after a thunder or a good rainstorm, at a waterfall, in a forest, at the ocean. Those are places where there's a lot of electrical activity in the air, and we can use those electrons in our bodies. We need those free electrons. So, because we're an electrical being. So when those are not present, the air is such that it makes people sleepy and stagnant and lethargic. So if you go into an old building, like I notice it in my town buildings, like if I have to go into the town hall or if I have to go into the DMV, where the air is really stale and stagnant, and it's hard to even stay present, awake, and focused, it's because there's no ions left. That air has just been breathed up. So we want to create that fresh air in our house like that. So now we're talking about a multi-pronged strategy: plants, filters, ion generators, and here's the final piece: monitoring the humidity in your house. You can get yourself a cheap little humidity gauge if you want, so that you can see it numerically, or you can just feel it. In the wintertime, if you're breathing air and it's making your nose bleed and it's making your nose dry out, you need more humidity. And you can do that by boiling water, by putting maybe a wet cloth on a heater somewhere, and just putting a spray bottle and misting the air and increasing the humidity. Or if you're in a place where it's so humid you're getting too much mildew and mold in your house, you need a dehumidifier, and that'll pull moisture out of the air. So we can regulate our air in those 4 ways. I'm just going to go through them one more time.
Yes.
That is houseplants and open windows. That's filtration. That's ion generation, and that's monitoring humidity. And if you have control of those 4 things, you control the atmosphere in your personal habitat, and that's going to make your body want to breathe more, because that air is going to be very nourishing to you.
Interesting. So I know the listeners are going to be hearing this right now wondering, okay, what brands does Daniel recommend? Where can we get this kind of stuff? And I know there's a lot of options out there. Are you at liberty to talk about any of the things that you like?
I'm at liberty to talk about anything I like, but I'll just say this: I don't have any particular brands that I'm actually slavish to on this. I've seen stuff that's very expensive where all these things are kind of combined into one, and I've seen really cheap, inexpensive units too. Right now, I don't have a particular brand. I'm just sort of testing different things. So I don't have anything I really want to recommend. I'll say this: I've really liked the Heaven Fresh units. I've used those a bunch for generating ions, and they do have some HEPA filter units. So yeah, I'll say I like that brand because I've used it. Okay. But there's a lot to choose from, and I don't have one that I particularly love more than another. But like I said, you can buy these very inexpensively at a local department store, or you can shop online and find very high-end units. There's a lot out there. They all basically do a very simple thing. Or, they pull out particles, they add ions. So what we want to be conscientious of is there's a difference between an ion generator and an ozone generator.
Okay.
Right. Ozone generators, if somebody's, that's high artillery, right? If we're going to use an ozone generator, we need to be careful because we can produce too much ozone, too much of a negative charge, and that will actually start to eat things in your house. So you'll start to notice wires starting to break down, anything like latex starts to degrade because that ozone will start to oxidize things in your house. So if we're going to have an ozone generator, we can only run it for short periods of time compared to an ion generator, which we can run more often. So That's just a little caveat. But yeah, I don't have any brands that I'm particularly slavish to, and I really encourage the listeners to chat, get together, kind of communicate. Maybe come up with some brands that they like, or I encourage you guys to sort of maybe for your store that I've been hearing so much about, find something that you like there, because these things really can dramatically impact somebody's health in a way that we just don't think about it. We think so much about food, and I'll see somebody eating, $150 green powder, breathing air that isn't fit for human consumption.
Interesting. And so now, as we're wrapping up, do you have any ideas as far as the plants go, and what kinds of plants and how many they need in each room and that kind of thing?
Well, here's the thing. I live in a really small cabin-like building out in the forest. I don't have a room for a lot of plants, and I don't need a lot of plants because my house is very small, and I live on 100 acres of forested land, and our windows and doors are open to the point that we live with insects. So we don't need as much because we have all this air moving in and out of the house all the time.
Okay.
But if I lived, let's say, deep in a city environment where there wasn't this expanse of plants all around my house, let's say more concrete around my house, because right now I am surrounded by trees. If I was in the city, I would want as many plants as I could healthfully maintain. And I would want them in as many rooms as there was light sufficient for them to survive, right? So it depends. If you are in an environment where the air is really bad, you're going to want more plants. If you're in an environment where the air is really good, you're not going to need as many. What I noticed in NASA's study was that it almost, they did rate certain plants, like for instance, the spider plants were better at absorbing formaldehyde than certain other plants, but only slightly. And really, it looked to me like it almost didn't matter what plants you had. As long as they had leaves, broad leaves, they did a really good job of sequestering toxic gases. But what they did say that was most important is that the zone where the plant meets the soil can't be covered. That area, it's actually really happening at the surface, maybe bacterially, where the plant and the soil meet. So we need to make sure that that space is open and clean. So if lots of leaves have fallen and are covering the soil, you need to clean that up so that that area is exposed.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Huh. Wow. So it's actually happening at the soil level then, like you said.
At least partially, yeah. At least partially.
Interesting. Wow, that was just quite the download. Thank you, Daniel. That was amazing.
Thank you guys so much. It's really been fun to get to share. This 4-element idea, I can't imagine that I personally thought of it, but for whatever reason, hasn't really come out, but it seems so obvious, right? We need food, water, air, and we need sunlight. And those 4 things are crucial to a complete health strategy. If any one of those are missing, how healthy can you be? Right. If anyone is missing, how far can you really take it? So we need all 4, and we need to develop all 4 simultaneously and in balance to each other. So it's just been great to be able to share all this stuff because there's just so much more than food.
No, I know. I love it.
Isn't there, though?
Yeah, It's good. It's a good reminder, too, because that's what you're trying to do is just remind people that there is more than just food and water. And sometimes people don't even get into the water, but like you said, people gravitate to one side and polarize themselves and forget the other elements. So this is really, really a good reminder. So thank you, Daniel. That was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you're welcome.
And I'm still going to come up with a word for you between optimist and pessimist. I'll get back to you on that next show.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Daniel.
Well, there you have it.
Well, more than you ever can imagine every time Daniel Vitalis gets on the other line.
I know, right?
Golly. Air, water, fire.
Oh my gosh. I was laughing at a couple points during the interview because he's just got so much information, the stuff that no one thinks about.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's like jam-packed with just tons of facts. I mean, who knows this stuff?
I know. I was laughing a couple times too during the shows prior to this because, I would advertise the show as, hey, Daniel's going to be talking about air. And you think about
what the heck
is he going to say about air?
Who talks about air?
But it's really fascinating.
It is.
If you guys are looking for a good air filter, we talked to Doris Rapp. I forget what episode she is. I'll put a link to this show page, extremehealthradio.com/148. And she recommends the Austin Air Purifier. And then so after that, I did some research. looked into the company, called them, talked to them, and really, really looked into it. And I spoke with Deborah off the air for about an hour, asking her about these air filters and how they work and all this kind of stuff. And so right now, we really like the Austin Air Purifier, and you can find that on our store. Currently, our store is completely messed up. So I have
Dish shovel.
I apologize. We're rebuilding that store. So if you're listening to this in the future, you can check that out, and hopefully it's the new version. But yeah,
But it'll be there.
Yeah, if you go to extremehealthradio.com/Austin, AUSTIN, you'll be able to check out those air purifiers. And then we'll put the link as well to listen to the show with Dr. Doris Rapp about why she recommends those. And also, like Daniel said, just get something, you know?
Yeah.
If it's not the Austin Air, I was going to ask him during the show, just putting a little intention.
Yeah.
Just buying the cheapo thing and just getting used to the habit of turning it on and buying it and bringing it into your house. I think that alone it's like praying
That's what we've
for your
done.
food.
And yeah.
You know?
Yes.
It's like bringing a little intention into your living, you know? I think that alone, even if the air purifier doesn't do anything.
That's true. Placebo effect.
Yeah, it's
you
a
have the
placebo.
cleanest air that you've ever.
Yeah, cleanest. Well, what you think is the
You
cleanest
think?
air.
Hey, maybe there's something to that.
But
then.
you know, just getting that intention started and
Yes.
living with intention and bringing these things into your house. And I also wrote an article a while back called, let's see, what's the title of it? I'll put a link to it on this show page. How to grow cleaner air inside your home. And we talked about the bamboo palm, the snake plant, the erica palm, the spider plant, the peace lily, and the Gerbera daisy.
Oh, the Gerber daisy.
Gerber daisy.
Yeah.
And there's a great video on that page too, and an infographic as to what these things do. So we'll put a link to that.
I didn't know that about the daisy.
Yeah, the
A lot of women love them.
Oh, really?
I think it is Gerber. People call them Gerber. I don't know why. But
And I'd never heard that from Daniel about making sure the soil
gosh, I know.
down below is uncovered so that transfer of exchange can happen.
I love how he just paints really good pictures that I mean, it is so funny thinking we're walking around on this earth and we're bottom dwellers, really, of like an aquarium situation with the air.
Yeah, it really painted.
It's so funny, isn't it? When
It's
you
a
think
good
about
picture, yeah, because we're almost like the lobster eating
We
the
are.
garbage, or breathing the garbage air that's very close to the surface.
Yes,
You know,
we are bottom dwellers.
I don't know. We don't have an exo. We have a regular skeleton. We don't have an exoskeleton.
I don't think we have an exoskeleton.
You drop us off 100 feet, we die.
Yes, very true. You are very true, very right.
Oh man, interesting stuff. So yeah, check out that Austin Air Purifier. And also, if you are in tune, if you're kind of resonating with Daniel Vitalis's products and things like that, like the colostrum we talked about.
Oh yeah.
We take that, and the pine pollen is amazing stuff. We take that as well. If you want to go through our link, we would be so appreciative of that. If you go to extremehealthradio.com/surthrival, SURTHRIVAL, surthrival, that'll take you over there anytime you want to make a purchase, and we'll get commission. And I really stand behind Daniel and the work that he does.
I do too.
You know, he's
Not only is he fun and entertaining, but he's just a good guy, and he puts out the best of the best. He's really anal about his products, which I think is just awesome.
Putting stuff in Myron glass and doing a dual extraction of his. He's doing a dual extraction of his mushrooms in spring water that he collects himself. I mean, it's like amazing.
Who goes to that? I don't know.
Seriously, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, guys, thank you so much for listening to this show. If you want to make a comment, you can go to extremehealthradio.com/148, and you can make a comment on the bottom of that page and talk about what you thought about Daniel and his show here. So thank you so much, everyone. And
Always fun hanging out with you guys.
yeah, and if you know anyone who would be interested in this show, please share this on your Facebook wall or to your friends or via email. Please pass it on to people you care about, because we are just a mom and pop deal here. It's just Kate and I, and
little Maggie Brown.
And little Maggie Brown. She does a little bit of transcription every now and then.
With her little doggy hands.
So if you can share this show, that would really help us get the word out and keep serving you in a free way. So that would be very, very helpful.
Yes.
All right,
Thank
it's
you,
time
guys.
for us to go. I think I'm going to I got to make my smoothie.
I know you are.
I got to do that.
Bye.
All right, guys, thanks so much
Bye,
for listening,
guys.
and we'll catch you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to this episode.
It's time to go for now, but our mission does not end with this show.
Justin and Kate will be back with another interview packed full of ideas, discoveries, and unique ways to regain your health.
Head on over to extremehealthradio.com/subscribe and instantly download our free gift too that contains cutting-edge strategies to start making healthy lifestyle changes today.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even as you educate yourself in the field of live food nutrition and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers or listeners medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog and during this podcast is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any of the information on this podcast or in this blog, or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment or cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be construed as such. Always work with a qualified health practitioner or professional